This video is brought to you in part by Samsung. And I'm going to be giving away the Polk R700 speakers with the Doge10 tube amplifier and the iFi Zen streamer, all of which I have reviewed and I will link down in the description for you to check out. And all the details on how to enter for this wonderful giveaway is in the description below and in the pinned comment section. So make sure to check below this video to check how you can enter for this giveaway and don't miss out. This is the Doge10 MK3 tube integrated amplifier that everyone has been raving about and waiting for. But that wait is over because right now I have the verdict, and this is perhaps one of the best sounding tube integrated amplifier under $3,000. And I am so disappointed and sad that with a conscious mind I cannot recommend this product to my viewers. And we'll talk about why that is. Now let me make it very clear. In this video we are going to talk about the sound quality, the build quality, but also we're going to start right off in the beginning as to why I cannot recommend this product. Now, why do I even bother to do this video in the first place? Well, I am giving away this tube integrated amplifier and I would like the winner, whoever may that be, to understand what they're getting, first of all. And second of all, most importantly, my channel is about my journey. That's literally in the name. Jay's Iyagi means Jay's journey, Jay's story in audio, and that's what this channel is about. And if I'm only going to make videos based on my positive experiences with audio, then might as well change the name to Jay's positive experience in audio or Jay's positive journey. Sometimes it's a miss, sometimes it's not so positive, and sometimes it's a mix of feelings like the one I have here. And that's why I made a conscious decision to make this video despite this being mix of things. It could be seen as negative, but it could also be seen as positive. So here's the first problem, and that's the tuning. The actual sound signature of this unit is probably one of, and that's why this review is kind of pointless in you going and buying a Doge10, because this unit is probably the only unit or one of that will sound like this. Maybe you can find another one that sounds like this, but it is very unlikely and you will have to go through a lot of hoops and loops to perhaps check if it's the right tuning. And let me explain what that means. So when the Mark 1 and Mark 2 was released, I didn't review it, and you guys probably noticed that. The main reason was because I heard my friend's unit that he bought and I didn't like it. It was too bright for my liking. So I said, Doge, I don't want to review the Mark 1 or the Mark 2. Now, time goes by and Mark 3 is released and Mark from Doge Audio comes to me and says, hey, do you want to review the Mark 3? It's no longer bright, it's actually warm. In fact, some reviewers have said that it's too warm. And I said, whoa, that's exactly what I want in a tube amplifier. I want that warm, gush, beautiful sound. That's what I want. So send it over, let me test it out. It arrives and I am just stoked. I am just stoked because this thing is beautiful. It looks gorgeous, but it's supposed to have a warm, natural sound, that organicness. Well, I hook it up and immediately I'm disappointed because it sounds bright. But hold on, I don't just say, it's bright and push it off. I let it run for about a week or two, putting in hundreds of hours, as much as I can. And it turns out that the high frequency does tame over time with break-in. However, it was still too bright for my liking. So I asked Doge, hey, this seems to be too bright for my liking. I don't quite like it. And that's expected. It's okay, but that's what I'm going to say, that is too bright for my liking. And Doge said, you know what, we've gotten that feedback from others, which is kind of contradictory to what they told me before. But anyhow, they sent me parts to change inside the unit to tune it more warmer. So they sent me multiple different parts, and at the end of the day, I tried multiple different parts, put a lot of time into it, and finally it sounded great. And I wouldn't say perfect, but it sounded really, really good. And like I said, perhaps one of the best integrated amplifiers I've heard at this price range. Warm, yet not as analytical, but has the detail. Hold on, we'll talk about the sound in a minute. That was a teaser. But anyways, the point being is that the tuning is this. Now the only problem is that it turns out after multiple conversations with different people from Doge and so on, they've done silent changes to previous units, meaning even though it's the same Doge10 Mark III, there is absolutely no guarantee that what you get is what I reviewed. And that's disappointing because while it's true that many companies do go under silent treatments or silent changes, the tuning is quite drastic to a point where one may think it's too bright. Like, what the hell is Jay talking about? It's all warm and nice and lush. Like, it's bright. The change is too drastic for me to not point this out. And so that's the first thing. Now, number two, it blew up. And that is exactly what it sounds like. The first unit that came here was faulty. It stopped working and there was smoke coming out and I had to fix it. Now, I've given Doge a lot of benefit of a doubt. I mean, a lot. But at the end of the day, Doge reached out to me about a year and a half ago as a small company attempting to get me to review the Doge7 tube DAC and the Doge8 tube preamplifier. And I openly accepted with open arms because I saw components in there like clarity auto capacitors that would be inside components that cost 5 times what they were charging. And so I thought this was a great chance, great bang for the buck, something that I can recommend to my viewers that I really haven't seen too much of in the audio industry, at least in the last few decades. Like, honestly, it had great components. The problem here is that the sale amount after my review went, and again, my reviews are not, like, I never say go and buy something. I don't care if you buy it or not. But I recommended the product and it sold like hotcakes. What ended up happening was that their company had a large sum of money and a large sum of order for such a small company. And they had a hell of a time fulfilling the orders and customer service. And I understand, and I understood, and I gave them a benefit of doubt as much as I can, but then the customer service would never improve. I went for us to really have a talk with the customer service guys at Doge Audio and Doge people in general, the people running the company, to kind of help them and do free consulting for them essentially to kind of bring up their customer service game. The problem here is that it seems like they just don't get it. And the customer service has been more than shady, as a lot of my Patreons, and not just my Patreons, but a lot of the feedback has been rather negative. And while small companies that get lots of orders initially do run into these problems, this is becoming ridiculous, to a point where you might as well not have customer service. Because it's like getting a refund from them or getting any type of response out of them is like trying to take a candy away from a little child. And that to me is ridiculous, and that's something I have to state. And that's not something I state often. It only has been stated now because it has come to a point where it seems to be an ongoing problem that will never get solved. And hopefully they do get it solved. And that's my hope of making this video, because unless I make this statement, I feel like nothing will change. And even after this video, maybe nothing will change. But at least you as a viewer can make a conscious decision when you're buying a Doge product. And bonus reason, it is out of stock and you may have to wait a long time before it's available again. There is a timeline on the website, but again, it is never guaranteed. Now, on a brighter note, the sound quality is extremely good on this unit. The bass for a tube amplifier is incredible. And of course, I haven't heard the Mark 1 or the Mark 2 in my space, but as Doge has told me, this unit is definitely a warmer sounding unit, meaning that it has great bass authority, much more so than the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 in my opinion. Now, the Mark 3 has really good thumpy bass and really good extension and grip for a tube amplifier. And when I say for a tube amplifier, I mean it is at the level of solid states. And that is extremely rare for a tube amplifier because, as you know, tube amplifiers usually have loose bass or not as tight. However, this unit is extremely tight in the bass region, even more than the Deckware unit that I had. Now, I'm not saying that Doge10 is anywhere at the level of the Deckware in terms of mid-range and high frequency and sound staging. However, I will say that the bass is extremely good on the Doge10, and I much prefer it over the Deckware. And Deckware is a much more expensive unit, mind you, so please don't say that I said Doge10 is better than the Deckware, because that's not what I said. Deckware is much better than the Doge10 it is much more pricier, it is well built, has better components inside than the Doge10. However, in terms of bass alone, I think the authority is at the solid state level for the Doge10, which is a plus when it comes to tube amplifiers because often that is something that you sacrifice. Well, in the Doge10, you don't sacrifice bass whatsoever. It's textured, it has nuance, it has really good bass, even compared to a really good solid state amplifier. And I think they did a really good job when it came to the bass region. The mid-range and high frequency is definitely great, but not the best I've heard. The mid-range and high frequency is taken form of more of a modern tuning, meaning it is still slightly on the brighter side of neutral. It is definitely not going to be a warm, rolled off sound that you get with vintage units or a smooth liquid sound like you get with deckware, but it's somewhere in between. Meaning it is smooth, but it is just edgy enough that you will be kind of on the edge of your seat, but at the same time, it is not so bright like it was with the Mark I and the Mark II, to the point where your preference has to be bright or you have really rolled off speakers or something in a really damped room for you to enjoy the unit. Meaning this is overall, in my opinion, a well-balanced tube integrated amplifier. It has a little bit of V-curve if you got from what I said, meaning that it has a little bit of bass boost and a little bit of treble boost. In terms of tone, the mid-range is very good. I would say it's about neutral as it will get in a tube amplifier, and it does have a little bit of edge. Like I said, it's not totally smooth and liquid, but you do get a very good tone in male vocals, female vocals, guitars, string instruments, horn instruments, you name it. It does give you a very good sound quality, and it gives you a very, I would say, pretty accurate yet slightly more exaggerated ring to it. And this gives you a very pleasant experience when you're listening in your system that gives you more of a holographic sound. Now, talking about holographic sound, the soundstage on the Doge10 Mark III drastically improved after playing around with different tunings, I should say. Where before it seemed like everything was splattering everywhere, but now it's way more focused. At the same time, the soundstage seems to be more opened up compared to the Mark I and the Mark II in a way that is very pleasant. Things are floating around like you would expect from a good tube amplifier. But I wouldn't say the soundstage is as large as some of the Jadis or some of the high-end stuff that I've heard in a tube integrated amplifier. And mind you, my background is in high-end audio, as you may know. So my comparisons are definitely gonna be, kind of in that direction. But keep in mind, for a unit that costs $2,100 US, this is an extremely good accomplishment in sound quality and sound staging. Now, in terms of imaging, I would say that the little bit of that edge that I was talking about does give you a better imaging capability on these, giving you a more center imaging, and things floating around you are more pinpoint than you would get from a vintage tube amplifier or other tube amplifiers that has more liquid and luscious sound. In fact, I would say the imaging capability is slightly better on the Doge10 than the deckware, while the deckware is more pleasant in overall response and presentation. Overall, the sound quality is absolutely stunning for this price range and very warranted, very easily. This is the best integrated amplifier I have heard so far that is tube designed under $3,000. So now let's go and check out the build quality. So as you can see, this is the Doge10 Mark III that I show you in more raw form here. And as you can see, it's built well. It's all metal construction, aluminum, I believe. Has these pillars, which I have mixed feelings about. Kind of like it, kind of don't. And yeah, that's pretty much it for build quality. It's just a nice unit. Has KT88 tubes with the output tubes, but you can change it to 6550 or KT120. I don't recommend 6550 just because those tubes seem to have problem biasing. It has auto biasing. And so what auto biasing is a feature that is existent in a lot of higher end units. So I was excited to see it on a unit like this. The only problem is it doesn't work as well as you think it does. So what I mean by that is, so how it happens is you go to turn the amplifier and it blinks a little bit to kind of warm up the tubes, and then it turns solid as you saw. And then you do what you call a bias check. And you see the red buttons right there. And once it turns blue, when it all turns blue, that's when you know it's all biased. And you can't control the volume yet, and you can see it's blinking. See how it's taking quite a bit of time for it to bias? And that's why this is kind of faulty, kind of, I wouldn't say faulty, but kind of a inconvenience, because it doesn't work the way it should. I'm in class A right now, as you can see. So this is gonna take forever. So what I do is I change it to class AB. And then when I change it to class AB and then I do bias reset, now it starts changing pretty fast. And now you go, there you go, it's all biased. All the lights have turned blue. But then when I go back, you see how it's readjusting. So this is a bit of a problem because this happens quite frequently. Now you do this until it kind of gets to a point where it doesn't change anymore. So this is kind of ridiculous for me, because this should be making things easier, but it's making things harder by not doing it properly. So see, it turned all blue right there. It means it's biased. So the auto biased, all you gotta do is now click away and you're ready to rock and roll. Now, if you want to change to class A now and bias it, it'll be a lot faster. Go to class A, then you go bias reset. So there you go. It took a bit of time, but it did bias, whereas before it didn't bias at all. So again, this is kind of weird because this should be making things easier, but it's really not making it all that easy. It's just kind of finicky, and it won't turn blue all like this, which it should, for every time you change your class mode. Now, talking a little bit about class mode here, I don't recommend class A at all, which is kind of odd, right? So it has class A and class AB, and I'll put the power rating for each on the screen here. But class AB is what I described in the sound section. Class A makes things more bright and much less bass, and it has like an upper mid-range glare. So I just don't like class A. I just recommend class AB for this unit. Class A tuning is just way off in my opinion. And on this side, you have two dials here. And here you can see that you have the input selector. So you have the line 1, line 2. We're on line 1 right now. And then here you have the feedback mode. So you have this the negative feedback. You have low, medium, and normal. And basically what this does is kind of, so for low, it's like the most purest sound. Medium, I would say, is like kind of in between, and normal. It does not make a huge difference on this unit. It's minute differences. However, if you want a little bit less fatigue with your speakers, you can change it to medium or normal. But if you like pure high frequency, you're that kind of pure kind of guy, then you put it out to low. So not much of a difference there. It does have here a pre function here. If you go to the right here, pre, and that's when you use this as just an amplifier and you have your own preamplifier. I don't recommend it for various reasons. I don't recommend doing that. If you're gonna buy this, buy it as a integrated amplifier. That's what I recommend. And then you have the tubes here. In terms of tube rolling, I have to say you can use 6550 KT120, but I recommend just sticking to KT88. If anything, 6550 seems to cause biasing problems, KT120 as well. The KT88 is the safest, and you don't want to, make this biasing problem a huge thing, because it can lead to damage to the unit like it has done for me. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of build quality. Quite beautiful unit actually. Kind of prefer it in black. Now moving on to some of the component matching and comparisons, I would say that these are a great match with the Polk R700s that I'm giving away, which has a great bass authority, However, the high frequency is slightly not as refined as you would find in higher end products that I mentioned. However, with the Doge10 being a little bit of a brighter sound characteristic that elevates the highs of the Polk R700 and really kind of grasp that high frequency to a different level of refinement, it does give you a very good balanced tone without sacrificing the bass that the R700 already has, which again, this is synergistically a great system. That's why I'm giving it away. Now, when it comes to comparisons, I would say this unit in particular is more to my liking than Prima Luna units. I find that Prima Luna units are more modern sounding. And while I have never reviewed a Prima Luna on this channel, I have had extensive listening sessions with Prima Luna units in the past, and I really never really liked them because they sound more modern than the Doge10, the current one here. Now, it is a fine balance because the Doge10 is still a modern sounding tube amplifier in my eyes. It's not a vintage unit. It doesn't sound like a vintage unit, but it walks a fine balance between being vintage while having that modern finesse in the high frequency that is similar to solid states in the bass region. So in my opinion, the Doge10 bypasses a lot of the hybrids out there, meaning the reason hybrid amplifiers existed in the first place was to kind of get that balance of great solid state amplifier and great tube amplifier. Well, the Doge10 being a full tube unit, it really puts hybrids to shame. It really does. Because the Doge10 has that bass authority that a lot of the hybrids don't even have. While it has the high frequency that a tube amplifier would have and the mid-range. And the soundstage and the holographic, the tube characteristic, the magic, right? Well, I don't quite find that magic with Prima Luna units. And this is not knocking on Prima Luna or Cayenne for that matter, because they're kind of like the same company from my perspective. They have similar sound signatures, similar build, and so on. But I would say this would be a definite upgrade from something like the likes of Wilsonton R8, which I reviewed. Obviously, R8 is much less expensive than this unit. But with shipping and with the current price increases, I would say the Doge10 makes way more sense if you're going for a tube amplifier at this point. Because while the Wilsonton R8 is still a great unit, at the time of me reviewing it, it was at a price point that was incredible. But now I believe the price increases and so on has kind of put levels to where Doge10 would make more sense in terms of refinement and finesse in the bass region. And again, I reviewed the R8 well before I reviewed the Doge10. In fact, the Mark III wasn't released when I reviewed the R8. So that's pretty much it for me in terms of comparison, my experience with this unit. It sounds incredible and I would definitely want to pick it up in a used market and perhaps get someone competent enough to tune it to your liking if that's possible. But I really wouldn't suggest it as of now of making this video. Suggest going and buying it when it's available. But that's pretty much it from me. If this video was helpful, please click that like button. It does help my channel out tremendously and it doesn't cost you anything to do so. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Best of luck.